Okay, it's another session. Hi everyone, welcome to my fifth forefront session for the forefront residency. And in this session, we will be doing some live creating. So live coding, some live art asset creating of this video game project that we're working on. So just to do a bit of a refresh, this is a video game that simulates like a regenerative solar punk eco village. And it is a very ambitious project. So during this residency, we're just gonna be making some like tiny interactions, like a small element inside this whole game. And yeah, so that is the plan. But before we dive in today, I wanted to share with you some insights that I've been having in terms of just the creative process. So, because as you know, you might know, once you get into like making, it's kind of has all these different layers, have a more complex system, it gets really intense. Like the workload gets really, really intense, and then I feel like there is never enough hours in a day, and a lot of times I personally feel really stressed. And I've been really thinking about what's the best way to optimize my time and energy so that I don't feel like super burnt out. Because once you feel burnt out, the result is actually less good and efficient, because like you feel burnt out, then you feel like you need more time to rest, and then like the end result of the work is not as optimal as it can be. So I've written down some words for myself that I would also like to share with you all about just like work routine and what's the best way to like balance out your work and your leisure in a way that's physically and mentally healthy, so that you enjoy the work, but you also like are treating yourself as a temple, as we all like to say that. So this is actually pretty much, also I want to give a shout out to Kabuki for his session about rituals and practices. And I think I found those stories of well-known or well-respected artists and the way they handle their work ritual to be super inspiring. So I had the idea that maybe I should develop my own ritual. So I took some personal note yesterday, and I would love to share with you guys before we get started with the session today. So number one ritual is take breaks to rejuvenate yourself. Never overwork yourself. Be very careful about your capacity. This is something that I think a lot of people probably like share similar feelings, where like once you get really excited about something, you're like, oh yeah, I want to spend like 20 hours a day on this thing, and then I will never get tired because I'm so excited. And then, but the more energy, like explosive energy you give up front, the less likely for you, the harder it is for you to actually finish the progress. So just remember, like in everything that we're creating, it's more like a long game, it's a marathon, it's not a short sprint, especially if you have like a more elaborate plan for it. So definitely remember to take breaks. And the kind of breaks to take is also very, very important. So I've written down, take breaks and make sure they're fun and soulfully enjoyable. So be aware how you feel mentally and physically, and tend to your needs accordingly. So if you like take breaks in a more kind of in a more extracting way, where like, oh, I'm gonna take breaks and I'm gonna just like, like, I don't know, like play addictive video games for a few hours so I feel good, but then after that, like your body actually feel less good because you're like hunched, you're tired, your eyes are not feeling great. So these are some of the breaks that I've summarized for things that I think will be more healthy ways of taking breaks. Walk around and smell something really nice, smell nice flowers, smell some incense, stretch, read something really inspiring, dance, like even if you're just by yourself at home, just like dance for 10 minutes and let your body kind of just, get a more refreshed energy. And, read something funny, or like find something enjoyable and inspiration to see and browse. play like something casual, maybe a little casual game, and play with Duolingo, which is something I've been doing, which I found to be like a very gamified and fun experience. Or play some music if you like it. I recently got a little flute, and I just been playing like this flute once in a while to just regroup away from the computer, the screens. But this is very specific to the type of work that I'm doing, which is like very computer savvy. So whenever I have a chance to take a break, I like need to just like close down the screen and then completely just get off. And make yourself a really nice little drink, read something inspiring. And these breaks can be food for your soul and your body, something truly fulfills and rejuvenates you so that you feel more passionate going back to the grind. And then during these breaks, treat creativity as playful therapeutic outlet instead of an outcome-driven medium. Since it's a break, it's like if you want to draw something during the break, don't expect it to be just like a masterpiece, because it's more for a therapeutic purpose rather than like actually intentional creating something more like long-lasting. And make it a conversation with your soul and your body, and celebrate for yourself for coming this far. So we should be our biggest cheerleader. We should be there and be like, you did it, it was amazing. And then just tell yourself you did a really great job, and then just going back at it. And I'm just sharing all these with you, and then these are the words that I tell myself to help me kind of like get better at creating. And then the other parts is be consistent, set small incremental goals to make sure to finish them. So this is also something that I'm not really great at, because I have all these like really ambitious goals, and then I'm like, oh, I'm not gonna get there, and then like just kind of stop, and then feel like really it's like you're trying to chew like a giant iceberg all at once. And instead of chewing the iceberg, we can try to chop the iceberg into tiny pieces and then chew a little bit every day. But consistency is important. Like, you're not gonna really be able to achieve this grandiose goal if you don't be super consistent every day. And the next part is to be intentional. Before jumping into the device and start cranking at it, like on the technical level, ask yourself, is this really aligned with what you want to do? Are you like healing yourself? Are you healing others? Are you just like, in general, generating like really positive energy as you're working on this? And this is something that was one of the reasons that really motivates me to work on Agartha, because I feel super aligned with what I'm working on right now. And the last part is be disciplined. So catch yourself when your spirit is low, instead of indulging on things such as, in my opinion, not super healthy if you do it too much, like social media, like snacks, mindless activities. Try to calm your mind with more intentional approaches. So going back to like the way you intentionally take breaks, the way you intentionally get back on working, intentional is like the keyword of the day. And okay, so these are just like some tiny notes that I want to share before we get started with the technical session today. Because just want to I just want to point it out that like doing anything technical can be very much a grind, and it's very draining. But the more intentional we approach it, and then the more aware we are of ourselves and our like mental and physical situation as we're working on these projects, usually the better these projects can become, and also the more long-lasting. Okay, so I'm gonna just get started sharing my screen, and then we can jump into a more technical dive into today's session. So just full disclosure, before today I had a really rough plan on what I want to go through, but I don't create plans. So a lot of the time you kind of see just like me doing a lot of style like game development, and experience things and see what works and what doesn't. So it's not like gonna be a really fruitful and related programming like tutorial section, but it's more gonna be like an experiment, and I will like kind of walk through my thought process. And okay, so what you see right now, it's a roll of lettuce. And there's right here, but I'm kidding. So go back to the concept of the Agartha game. The Agartha game, it's a it's aiming to that kind of teaches about like eco-village building and permaculture principles. And we are just gonna go into the scene set. So I've been creating different scenes for this game. Each scene, you can understand it as like each separate little world inside a game, each different windows. So like in the end, like a composed of many scenes. So if you've played things like what's that game kids like to play, these Fortnite. Yeah, if you played like Fortnite, the video game, there's usually there's one where like you're controlling the player. It's like a scene to your category and look at the items, and there's a scene where you look at your stats, and there's a setting menu where you change your names and all that stuff. So these are like, there can be different items in a game that you enable and disable, but they can also be different scenes. So right now I'm just building up different scenes, and this is the scene where we're gonna build up the menu. After that, after we build it up in this more dedicated like UI scene, we can like also enable the different 3D scenes as an overlay item. But basically, this is where you would go to a menu to browse to see, what is like what are some of the available plants I have to plant, and I have to like plant on this world, and also like what are some of the details of these plants. So like let's see how far we can get from developing this UI today. Before that, I do want to show the non-UI, the 3D scene, which I think I've shared village map. Come on, wait, is this not okay? This for a second, I thought I deleted. Okay, so this is the 3D scene where I think it'd be really cool if we can have, like the player kind of walk around into this little like, 2-3 acres. I would say this is probably like 5 acres of land, and walk around and then like look at the terrain, and then, and then a UI window will pop up, and then you can select a UI, go to the category menu earlier, and then choose, I want to put a lettuce here, I want to plant a corn here, and then you'll be able to drag all the elements into the scene, and then, and then they will be planted, and then later on when you come back, you can like select different parts of the soil, and then it'll show you what's planted on there, how are they, and what's their like nutrition level, like how are they progressing, so things like that. But we're not going to get into all of that today. We're just going to focus on the menu. And so we'll go back to the village map. We'll call it the village UI. Reload it. And so you've seen it's what you see right now. I've set up a whole level of lettuce. And because we love lettuce, and it's like one of the easiest growing things, and it's also one of the few things that has a lot of available online. But the intention, I'm just using these as placeholder now, but the intention is that each of these will be like a little plant, and then you'll be able to like click on that, and then different like stats on. I've also made a little mock-up. So this is the aim for like the individual menu for each item. So let's say you go to the first layer of menu, and then like you see all the lettuces stuff, and then you click on each, and then it will show this menu. I really like the style of this. I feel like this can be kind of a t-shirt. Like, like imagine people starting to wear t-shirts that tell you like very detailed, like kind of like data on plant growth and nutrition. I just think that would be kind of a funny meme. And then the idea beyond this game, I like had this other idea during the process of creating this game, that like these data can kind of become a open source catalog where we can have all these data as CSV forms online on GitHub, and then all the 3D model and textures as free assets for people to download. So I just had this idea like yesterday, like as we were creating this game, since we're gonna start to pull all the data from, you know, like so many different kinds of plants beyond just lettuce, and then like all these data can be, we're gonna use them in this game anyway. Might as well we can create them just into a different project where the, like if other people want to create this data or to fetch this data and then use this in their own like metaverse or gaming project, they can just go to, you know, this website and click download, and then that would be able to download like the 3D model, the mesh, and then all these data, you know, like how much NPK this plant need to grow, the pH level of the soil, what's the growth cycle, and all these things, and also what's the nutrition that this plant will be able to provide to nutrition table. Once we start to collect these for each plant, eventually like in the game, you know, because it's a building game, we will be having people, we'll be having these eco-villages, and each of the residents also have needs. So like each of them have a certain amount of like nutrition they need to every day, so they don't starve to death or don't get like malnutritious or something like that. So you, as planting as you plants, not only you need to think about like the soil biodiversity, but also like the nutrition level that you have for each resident, right? So like we can't really just grow leafy greens. We need to have a healthy combination of leafy greens, root vegetables, fruit trees, nut trees, and maybe like, you know, like very hip superfood that people really like to eat these days, like spirulina, or, you know, like lion's mane, fancy hipster nutritious food. Maybe it could be like being added to the mix. So yeah, I don't know if we can get into this menu today, but that will be the goal. But so right now I've set up this very basic menu. Let me just take a pause to see. Okay, let me know if you have any questions or there's things that you would like for me to explain during the stream. So we have the UI element, which is the entire UI element, and then we have the top bar, which is kind of like the first tier of menu when you turn on the menu item. And then so the idea is that you click on the circle that shows this entire menu, and then these represents like a certain aspect of the game, like certain aspect of the information that you would like to see. Like the clouds represent the climate, and so once you click on the clouds, maybe it will show you data on like the climate, you know, what's the air moisture, what's the temperature right now, and what like the amount of sun that you're getting at different places. And then when you click on the water, it shows you like the whole water flow, you know, like how much water do you have in the container, how much is every resident's drawing, and then same with the, you click on that, it shows you like how much soil are you gathering and how much that is being put into each household and how much are people using, so like input, output. And for food, it's the same thing. That we see like, you know, food is probably more complicated because there's so many, there's going to be like many layers of food, aside from the category, from like all the food that you are able to plant. Also another layer of like all the food that's existing inside the game. So right now we're only gonna be worried about the category, and then later on, once we have the category up, we can see how to integrate this into different parts of the game. What I was working on before the stream was kind of just turning the UI button, toggling the menu as you press on the button. So what we had, I think, let me just play it and see which stage is it at. So I will press on, so when you have the game on, everything's disabled because I've set everything to be disabled on default. And if we can go into the code to just see, it's super simple code. So you basically have the menu as game object, and then you have a boolean, which is literally like a variable that just outputs truth and false. And these booleans are false, and then in onStart, which is like the function that gets called when games is starting, it's only getting called once. And onStart, I'm setting the submenu and content menu to be as the returns false, so on start all the submenu and the content menu are disabled. So as you're playing the game, it doesn't come out right away. Click on this and enable the submenu, and the idea is that you click on these, it should enable the context menu. So yeah, now I have the menu on toggle, so anything that you click would enable like this lettuce menu. It's not really ideal as event. What we want to do is that you click on the Apple menu, it should show you like food. Click on this, it should show you energy related stuff. Since we're not doing energy or anything else today, we're just gonna focus on lettuce. And so same logic now is to add this other layer of menu. So we're gonna add like the individual page from each element. Let's see, where did I put that file? Yeah, so page is like this. So I'm just gonna use this as a placeholder. I think eventually we do want to opt them out to be modular, just for the sake of convenience. And I'm just gonna put this as, drag this in, and it could be kind of big, so I'm gonna compress it a little bit. Compress 2K is enough. Turn it into a sprite so it's readable by UI element, and then so as we see right now on this left-hand hierarchy, there's a content menu, which is the menu of like this detailed content. By the way, also I don't think they should be all called menu. I think menu is like something you use when you order food in a restaurant. And so I think these should be called like item list or something like that, but since it's only a reference inside the game, no one's ever gonna see it, so we're just with this. But just want to say that like I don't think that's super correct, but it's okay. Don't have much time to think about that. The plant menu, like this kind of category where you see all the plants. So we want to put another menu alongside of this, so we can just duplicate this plant menu and delete everything inside. And now it's kind of fade out because this plant menu has like a default color to it, where if we change it to like green, you can see it's kind of green. But we're gonna use this plant menu as an image, so it looks like this. Ooh. And then change the color back to white, and so this is like the plant menu we want. And then it looks like bad right now because this is a placeholder, but we're just gonna use the placeholder for now. We're gonna put all this content later. And what's really cool is that all these data can be done with like a database, and then we're able to pull that database from custom scripts, so that like we don't have to hand code each element, but like the code would do it for. Would be kind of cool. I don't know if we have time for that today, but we'll see. And details. So the idea is that so the flow is that we'll click on this Apple button and it will enable this content menu, and then we'll click on this Apple button, it will enable this content menu and plant menu. And if we click on any of the buttons here as each plant, it will enable the menu. We click on the plant details menu, it will go back to the plant menu. Does that make sense? So, so I'm gonna just turn this plant detail as a button, and hopefully it works. So button is a really convenient element that's built in with Unity, and it turns every UI element into a clickable thing. So like as what button would mean. So right now when we hit, basically right now, if I play this again, the logic is, give it a second because I have a 6-year-old computer. If you click on this, if you look at the left side, if we click on the side menu, submenu, you will see the submenu is being toggled on and off. And once we have the submenu on, we click on the food menu, and it will toggle on the content menu. But then plant menu is on default of this element, and still click on the food button. We'll still toggle on the content menu, which is the pair it wouldn't turn on the child object. So now what we need to do is that every time we need to toggle the child object in between. So like when you click on, it turns on the plant details child. When you click the plant details child, it turns on this child, and toggle that one off. And so now knowing that that's the logic flow and that would be the goal, we can go back to our script, which I call it the menu controller. It really should be UI controller. God damn it. Okay. Go back to the menu controller, and we're going to add a few more game object elements here. So this is where Unity knows where our game objects are referenced at, because if you don't really tell Unity, like, okay, you can tell you this is where I declare this game object, but if you don't tell Unity what does it mean, like what one is content menu, there is no way for Unity to know like what you're actually referring to. So once you have the script defined, you save it, and then you attach the script to any object in the scene. Over here, this is the script that we just created, menu controller. All the public variable here would have a slot on the inspector, and then as we can see, sub content menu, which are the element I created here, have a reference item that once you click that, you will see that, oh, this is what I mean by submenu. It's actually this item. This is what I mean by content menu, and now I create one for plant menu and plant details. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do that. Game object, plant menu. No, out of the plant details. It should really be called plant details menu. It's just, or like details menu. Might need to have to be recoded later on, because as we will get more and more complex. Like this is definitely not the most efficient code, as you can see. Like we're toggling things with a like separate function for each menu's toggle, where like maybe the combined with one function with different variables. But because I want to do fast prototype, I don't want to think that far ahead. I just want to see things work and then feel how things work, and then that be able to really play test this idea. And then like once we see how things is working the way we want it to, or maybe there's things that we want to change, then we can go back to our code and be like, okay, so now we have the look that how do we optimize this code? So going back to the UI controller now, we've added more slots, plant and details, and it's empty right now. So I'm just gonna drag the plant menu inside and detail menu inside. And so the right flow is that once you enable this content menu, and okay, so there's one more thing that I want to add right now that would be useful for later on. So it doesn't matter at this moment, but I still think it will be worth to. So I'm gonna add another container under content menu, because content menu actually means all these different content, right? So if I'm only working with like the fruit and vegetable, this part, it doesn't make sense for this button to enable everything inside the content, because there should be a menu for electricity, there should be one for water. So, and it's bothering me that I'm not setting it up correctly, so I wanna just do it right, so I feel better. It's for my psychological health. And I'm gonna call this content menu plant content, and put plant menu details inside here, and have another placeholder called electricity, or as plant content we can call it food content, whatever, same stuff. Food content, electricity, we can call it energy content. Energy here we can have like a menu, different of menu, and then for example, instead of lettuce, place all these two like maybe lightning rod looking thing, and then we turn it into like yellows. Energy menu, and then we're gonna duplicate that one more time, and we call it water content. Duplicate that one more time and call it climate environment content. and then give them just each placeholder, knowing that all of these will completely change later on because, like energy doesn't really need to have a that, but just for the sake of sanity, just so we know that we're like kind of setting up infrastructure right, and it also shouldn't take us much time. This is water, raindrop, and icons are customly created in Illustrator. I'm quite proud of how they look. I really like their look right now. Okay, their environment content. Okay, the water content is right here, and the environment content is the last part, where just turn these letters to this cloud image and then give it a different color. And so now we have all these different content menu. That makes me actually really excited. That's very nerdy, but I am actually really excited to make this work. So right now, because we enable just content menu with any of these 4 buttons, as you can see, like I will click on this, and these kind of like just toggles the same menu, which like doesn't really make logical sense. So I'm gonna go back to my code and then add more elements. So public. So we have the content menu, we have the plant menu. I'm gonna call it food menu, food content menu, and food details menu. So food content menu, and then we can actually create game objects in this more efficient way. Energy, content menu, environment, content menu, and we save, and we'll go back to up here and system. Give it a second, and food content, and then we drag it into here. Energy, water, environment, and then this is the food details menu, which is inside here. Plant details and plant menu. This is actually, what should I call it? Plant menu? Plant menu inside the menu. It's like the category, so this is all definitely gonna be changed. Food detail, food, menu, just for the sake of and go back to the UI. Okay, food menu, we're gonna put plant menu inside details menu or details. Okay, so now we have all the elements reference that we need, and so we can get started with the creative process. We already know that this button is gonna enable this button, basically toggle. So toggle is like every time you click on it, it flips to a different result. So if it's on, it turns off. Where I think it makes more sense if it just stays on, because and then you press this to turn everything off. So I think like the incentive is to press on this main circle, and if the result is to turn off all the menu, like if you're turning off this menu, then content menu should be disabled. So content menu and submenu should be turned at the same time. So show submenu, let's see. Content menu, active content menu. I'm like judging this code so hard because it's so not efficient. But okay, just show content in here. It seems better, but sometimes the on and off confuse me too much. So every time we click this, now we enable both of these. So we enable the menu on top, we enable the menu down there. It seems like it should make sense. And And then now we click on each of these buttons to enable like the sub menu here. So what we can do is to create one function, and we can call like unpublic and show content sub menu. And this one we can give it a custom game object. So menu to show. And so if you pass an element over here, it will kind of give you an opportunity to create like a function that refers to this element directly. So instead of having 4 functions that like toggles each of these, we can just create one function and then use these as input to like turn them on based on which button is pressed. So what we want to do is really just only enable. We want to this item disable all the other item, right? So once we press on food, we want to enable this food content, but we also want to disable everything. So I think it would actually make more sense for us to turn this game object into an array list, because then you can easily kind of sort through this array. So bear with me, this code is gonna be crashed. Public game object. Is this how do you say? Is this how you call array? I forgot if this is in Unity, but we'll see if it gives us an arrow. No arrow. No arrow. Oh, no arrow. Yeah, awesome. So we go to the UI. Okay, now the content menu list. Oh, it's a list, and we can add these into. So an array is basically an array of object. So I will explain why, like, instead of having them listed as individuals, we can have them as array here. In a second, as we get into the like making this. So basically, because you might want to click on the clouds, and then after that you click on the apple. So you don't really know. I mean, I guess you can write code to document what's the last menu that you clicked on, and then just disable that. But since we only have 4 elements and it's not that much to calculate, I think it might be easier to, every time when you click on a new item, make sure everything else is disabled. Otherwise, you might click on the cloud and enable the cloud menu, and then you click on the rain, it will enable the water menu, and then you have 2 menus overlap. So that's not what we want. So I think it's more efficient to just like create an array and then call, whenever you call like set active of an item in the array, you only set that item. So let me just read some questions right now, because some of this game infrastructure be used to manage an IRL community later. I think this could be actually used to plan and coordinate your community. And yes, Nate, that's the exact plan. I think one thing I want to note is that the game is like an oversimplification of real world. So like all the content that we're planning here, it might be like not sufficient enough to educate on and indicate on real world. But I think the point is that once we have a game, we can use this game to kind of inspire how real world would look like or would work around like. So it's similar to the concept of creating farm bots, but it probably, and then like real physical can help to give feedback to the game to see if the data is actually correct, because then we can actually measure the soil and measure how the plant is growing under certain conditions. So yeah, that's the idea. Going back to this menu problem. Okay, now we have an array, and we probably didn't need to create all these, but we're gonna leave it there. And we're to public void show content submenu, and we can call it kind of the. I want to see what kind of identifier we should use. We can use the game object identifier. So what we are gonna do here is that this function is gonna input game object when it's being called, and as it's inputting the game object when it's being called, we're gonna run a for loop to see if which game object is this. We know in our content menu there's 4 game objects, And we're just gonna check like which one is this as this function is being called. So we're gonna run a for loop. You do for loop in Unity. I haven't done Unity in a really long time. JavaScript, so, which are actually very similar syntax, but sometimes I doubt myself. Length, is this length or count? We'll see if it gives me an error. Okay, and then this is, so for loop is basically a loop that as your computer is going through this code, for loop kind of like just loops around that's inside the code and with an integer. So this integer is the kind of like you can think about the index of this array. So we have this array. This array has 4 elements as it's defined out here, and it gave us an error, but we'll see that later. And then element 0, 1, 2, 3. So each of these elements kind of have an index. So this one is index 1, index 2, index 0, and so game object does not contain a definition for length. Okay, so I forgot what's the for loop index for Unity C#. And then when you forget the syntax, don't worry, Google will be your best friend. I'm kind of like ashamed to have to admit that I have to Google something super basic, but sometimes it happens, you just forget. So, okay, that's actually not what I wanted to find length of array. Yeah. So array.length, it should be the array.length. Okay, so you have an array of names and you want to find array.length. Oh, it's a capital L. Okay, so I capitalized this L. This is something I don't remember it was a capital L, but oh well. And then inside this for loop, we're gonna check like if this menu object, which is the game object that's being passed, is equals to, so we have 2 equals to really make sure that if it's equal to the game object of the current loop. So like menus, and then we're gonna give it an index. So the index in this for loop is gonna go from like 0 to 1 to 4. And so each time we're gonna check if this menu item is this. If so, we're gonna enable this content menu. So we're gonna enable content menu object. We're gonna enable this game object that set active true. And if it's not, which means that if this game object is not equal to this game object that you're passing, we set it to set active false. Suffice. So now every time when we call the show content submenu and then we tell it this is the menu we want to show, we will menu. So we can, and now we just need to find a place to actually call this function to see if it works. So going back to Unity, it's still giving me an error. Cannot apply to an expression type game object. Is it like, do I need the missing syntax? Is it like this? Okay, cannot apply index with the okay. I'm just gonna be cheap and Google this, see what's something that I did wrong, because content menu is, or what we can do is what we can print or debug log. I forgot which one it is. Unity C expression. So bullet. So this person thing that I'm trying to do, and yeah, new to C#. You rather so this is something that I definitely wasn't aware of. Create this as a name object, or add this reference. So I'm just gonna see if I can this reference here to see if this works. And a lot of times, really though, like going through game development is a lot of trials and error, experiment, and then like you never come into the game knowing everything, and then there's a lot of things that you need to just like learn. So one of the thing that I was super concerned with this live stream was like, I don't really like kind of. I was concerned about it, but I was also kind of intentional about it. I don't really want to prepare and then like look up all the things I needed to look up and then do it as if I like prepared for the session. I kind of just want to free flow it and do as I go, because this way we can also go through into like some of the problem solving parts where like once you have a I'll apply. Okay, so it's the same issue. I'm gonna try something else that this person suggested, where you create that into a new game object, which seems very unnecessary. I totally didn't remember that Unity used to be this complex, but we're gonna see if that's the case. Game object, and kind of how you can solve this problem. The game object active equals to true. And seems like very unnecessary because like you create a game object here, but it's not being used anywhere. So I don't know. We're gonna just comment out this part. See if this is working. I have a like this might not work, but we'll see. It's not working. Guys lying. Okay, let me see if there's other ways to solve this issue. If equals to content menu, or is it like the equals? It's not the syntax. Nah. I don't think it's that. I think it's the equals. But I totally. Let's see. Content menu. It should be the game object. Oh wait. This menu doesn't have S. Okay, so this is content menu S, and content menu is like something else. Okay. It might just be one of those where I'm missing an X, and now it might just work. So let's see. Yes, please. No, it's still okay. X. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. So it turns out it was a really dumb mistake, and then I want you guys know this actually happens a lot in game development to me and to a lot of people I know, where like you will spend hours thinking that you're stuck on a really high level bug, and then turns out it's just a typo, and then you come out 3 a.m. and you're just like. Back to why we have to be intentional about the so we don't get super frustrated, and I'm glad that that was it. And now I can enable these code and get rid of this thing because it seems extremely unnecessary, and game job, and then we can kind of go back to what we typed in earlier. Set active true and set active false. Okay, save one more time, and now it should be fine. Let's see. We have no arrows. Hell yes. And now we have the show content submenu function ready. We just need to call it, and as we call it, we need to also give it a reference on which menu are we enabling. So the way we call it, this is a very handy function that Unity have, that if you have this, it would take so much longer for all the games to develop. But basically, all the buttons have this on-click. Then you might think, what to do if it's called on-click? Well, if it's called on-click, it means that this is going to happen when you click on the thing. And as you click on this button, we can like basically input as a function that we want to call, and Okay, so going back to the unclick function, we are gonna press the add button, and we're gonna input our code, which is this one, which belongs to the manual controller script, and the manual controller script is attached to the UI. Once we plug in the, we can go over here to select our script. It's called menu controller, and then we can find show content menu, which is what the function was right here, show contents. And it allows us to input this game object menu. So this game object menu would be, since this is the air environment, we're gonna put in here. Yes, that's all there we need. And then we're gonna do the same for all these others, where I have the multi selected, and then once put in UI menu controller and water, we're gonna put content into this element. Food, we're gonna put the food content into this element. Energy, we're gonna put the energy content into this element. This should be all we need. So I'm actually, let's see if we can get this working. Please. Okay, so now press on, we have the default enabled, and then we click on light, and it's light. We click this. So it's working as yeah. You can click the crap out of this button and it will not give any issues, and then you turn that to turn it off. So very simple. I think we got it working. Sorry about the hiccup, but things just happens, you know. Let me see if there's, I love that game can inform the IRL community, and then the IRL community can inform the game realistic. Absolutely, Nate. I definitely agree with that. That's the goal. You got it. And okay, so this is kind of one of the things I really want to set out to do today. Aside from the, let's go back to what we wanted to do earlier, where like we can on any of these letters and this other menu. So going back to the same thing, where we're gonna click on the button here to toggle the planet wheel. We're gonna call it food details and food menu, and going back to the food. I think we have food menu here, food details menu here. So we really just want to toggle, since it's only 2 of them, and then we realize that all these elements like kind of not necessary. So I'm just gonna comment them out to keep things minimal. And we're gonna add another function here where we can call it public void toggle, or like toggle food details menu, and then toggle the food details with boolean, where like if this boolean returns true, then we show the details of the food, which is this, you know, the detail. Once we set that to be false, do the opposite. So it should be quite straightforward. If it's true, food menu, and we set that as false, no, as the opposite of true. So this little exclamation mark just reverse the boolean. So if the boolean is true, this would return false. And then details menu, set active, true. It no, not really. We need to actually call this function. So the function is created. We're gonna do the same thing that we and go back to, so we want is each of letters, we are gonna click on them and put in this function called food show. Again, I'll toggle food details menu. Okay, food details menu. And are we gonna turn on the detail by clicking on this? Yes, we are. So this boolean is true. cool details by clicking by dragging into the UI menu controller, toggle, and turn it off. And yeah, and then this should be off. Okay, so this should be it. Let's try to run this. If there's any comment, everyone's good. Everyone's really bored from from the coding tutorial. Sorry if this is really dry, but this is kind of how, like, realistically how it is to create something like this. It is a grind. And okay, now we can click on the lettuce, and it shows us the lettuce like details, which is kind of cool. I'm like overexcited about this. And then so click on this. It's cool. Yay! So now we have like some basic menu working. I think right now, since we have like a minute left, I would like to probably extend this for like another 10 minutes if it's okay. To maybe just add some really nice animations to like this enabling, because like, you know, as you see right now, it's like really kind of stiff. It's like pop enough. But what would be nice is that not only it pops on, it like has like nice fade in, and like, you know, color can like, you know, the fade in or the sides can pop up. So that part would be really cool. I haven't done anything like that in a really long time, so I need to kind of refigure out how that works. To like give it a shot with you guys here. Can work plain category. So maybe the first thing we can do is by clicking on this circle to have the enable and disabled, or have these things like, I think it would be really nice. Elements can like just hover out from the other side of the screen. So we're gonna try that. And like if I click on this, it just like boom, come in like you mean, like boom, like this. So that would be cool. Let's see if we can get that done with something that's called tweening. So tweening is a concept in animation. It's basically like a way to animate movement with curves, and it's basically you're telling the computer, oh, I want to move these things, or I want the color in these things with a linear time, and you tell it how it is, and you tell what kind of curve you want to use. So it will like, sometimes you can bounce things into screen. It can like things. I think actually enable size would be actually cooler. So like, imagine if I click this button, it like, you know, you can have like this like enable, like hop in the center is you can, yeah, like it'll like bounce from 0 to 1, just like boop. Kind of cool. To our function, which is, I think, no, I think function, oops, no, I think the function is show submenu function here. So every time a show submenu function is called, we want to just like also animation to like tween this, so it looks really nice. And this, I'm using one of my favorite package of Unity of all time. It's called Tweening, and Tween is this. I was just looking at the documentation earlier. It's just this library that allows you to very simply and easily use tween animation by calling. Like, they basically handle all the parts about curve and all the hard stuff, and all you need to do is just to really call one line of function, like do move or something. So we're gonna go through the documentation and relearn kind of to call these tweens, because I learned this a long time ago, but I haven't been doing this for a while, so now it's good to refresh our memory. First time you create a tween, initialize itself automatically. Instead, you prefer to initialize yourself, call this method once before creating anything. Consider that you can still change in its settings. Okay. Okay. One second, just moving some of the light. let's get back to this. We need to init the do tween before we call it. It's actually recommendatory, but since it says that you have to init it before everything else, so we're just gonna do it in the start menu here. Do tween init, and do tween is this external library, so we have to call like using this do tween script so that it knows. And you can also set all these complex numbers, but we don't have to do it now. The shortcuts way. Okay, cool. So now our goals is probably to do some scaling as you turn on this item. So we're gonna go to the show submenu and find elements of all these submenus and then just give it a do scale. So because this is a 2D element, I don't really know if we can use the regular transform because it's a 2D element. So we might need to use this thing called rect transform. One second. Let's see, plant category, rect transform, fruit menu. Yeah, so this element is called rect transform. As you see, that's different from a regular element, which has a transform. So maybe we want to find the rect transform reference on do tween, and the rect transform. Here we go, and then we can have the scale, do pivot, shake, size, delta, scroll, rect, anchor. It doesn't have the scale here. Maybe the scale is just universal. Do scale. Yeah, maybe it's just do scale. Okay, maybe we'll just do that. So show content, and we would call do scale on the transform of the object we want to scale at. So we have the submenu as a reference, and submenu is this object. Right here, and then what we don't really want to just change the transform of this. As you can see, if we change the scale here, it can like change all these elements all at once, which would be like, I don't know, I imagine like if we do these kind of scale up as we enable the menu, it would kind of look funny, but we don't. We kind of want it to look like kind of like more cute. So we're gonna do a reference of the child elements of the submenu, and instead of like listing them out up here like we did earlier, I think it would be more convenient to just get the child element. So we're gonna do for loop again, and in this for loop, we are gonna find the amount of child the submenu object have. So submenu child count, is it called count? Let me see, how do you do a child and find children count in game object unity and transform that child count. Okay, so submenu dot transform dot child count and I plus plus. So now we're creating another for loop to find all the children, and each children is gonna have its own do tween function. So we're gonna refer to each children as this way, submenu dot transform dot get child. I think this is the right reference. I, and so transform get. If this is returning a transform, or if this is returning game transform get child, I think this is returning the transform, so we don't have to return a transform again. Our transform that got child, and then we want to call the do tween. Call it do scale. Is it do scale? Why is there no stop? Scale right here. Do scale, yeah, it's here. Vector 3.2. So vector 3.2 is like the end scale that you want to get to, And so we're gonna do 1 new vector 3, 1, 1, and float duration. So we have set it up as 0.5 f meaning half a second, and it will just pop up in half a second if we are doing everything right. Line implement, be able to, if all goes well, we should be able to, transform does not contain a definition for get child enough. Transform does not contain a definition for get child. Don't tell me what transform contains. Let me see some reference. Oh, it's that capitalization again. So get child. You really have to emphasize. And now works. Okay, so now, and also we need to make sure that the initial scale of these things are 0. What? Why can't I set it to 0? Okay, I have to do it one by one. 0, 0, 0. Okay. Oh, before we set it to 0, make sure other pivot is at the center. We should be able to set it as a group. Because if your pivot is not at the center, it's gonna just like scale from the side, which is really weird. And we're gonna set this to 0 and set this to 0. To 0. So now all these elements are like hidden, but once you do it, it should to scale up to regular. This is working. The moment of truth. Okay, everything's disabled. And now we have a really nice animation. See, that only happens once because like I think after this function has run, all the scale has been set to 1 and 0. So what we want to do is that if if sub menu enable true, so if we are enabling this menu, we run this function, and else. So if it's not, we transform get child. Like, okay, do you just set the scale to 0? Sorry. Scale to new vector. So this, and you can also replace this with vector 3, 0. I think so, right? No. Pros or we're definitely not a pro. Transform does not contain. How do you like maybe capitalize scale? See if this works. Okay, transform change of transform unity. See what's the right reference? Local scale. Okay, that's what it's called. My bad. Local scale equals to vector 3, 0, and we're gonna go back. So, okay, so now when we're not enabling the submenu, we are gonna turn all these scale to 0 so that next time when we are enabling the menu, it will like still have the same really nice animation. And to make it extra fancier, I think it would be really cool if like increasingly like enable, so they don't like all come up at once, but it's tiny details in life, but it makes things a lot nicer. So on the side, we're gonna food, energy. So the index of this child environment is the first one, water, food, energy. They have an incremental index, and we can use this index to change it to like food, to change it to like the delay of this animation. So we can create a variable called delayed animation. We should float delay equals to no comment. Float equals to delay equals to applied by 0.2. So I is the index, and if I is 0, delay will be 0. If I is 1, delay will be 0.2. If I is 2, delay is like 0.4, and vice versa. So now we have this delay index. We can just apply it to do tweening. I think we can set delay here, but let me just check how do you set the delay. What? Set delay. Yeah, so okay. So you can transform, do blah, blah, set delay, this. And so we're gonna just do it here. Set delay. Delay. Cool. Okay. Let's see how it looks. This is a moment of truth. We'll see how it looks. Okay, and we play. Ah, wow. Is there a bug? Okay. Is there a bug? Okay. Sometimes maybe just like things are loading really random issues, but usually if you can clear it, it means that it's not like essential. So now we click on this, and you see our buttons. Okay, I need to like really maximize the scale. You click on this, and you see the button in and out, really nice. And I love what it looks like. It's so much more pro than like what we had before, which is just really stiff, you know? And I think it's these little details in the game that makes things feel more alive. And I think, you know, like we might be able to still do a bit more, just another 5 minutes. If you can click on this, and this button can also have certain response to know that like you've clicked on this, to like give some sort of like visual feedback, because we love visual feedback. So maybe another thing we can do is to change the size of the circle as you click on the circle. So once you click on, or even better, as we click on the circle, we change that to like a cross. So I'm gonna pull off Illustrator, real comment, pull off my Illustrator real quick to make a very simple cross. Or let's go to my Agartha, the Agartha Village OS. And yeah, so I have all file for this icon. I've made the kind of very similar cross like over and over and over. So I really should start saving all these assets that I'm making. Okay, we're not using this. Let's just make a super simple cross so that like as we click on the circle, it can change to the cross so that it knows that when the menu is opened, you can click that to close the menu. How big? 512 should be nice. Bigger than we need. It's just a tiny UI. And we're just gonna kind of eye it out. It'd be really nice if this is animated, but now we're like asking too much. And then on my UI assets here. So I know like estimate how wide is the kind of, okay, so this is how wide our UI element is, and this is how it is. Yeah, and then I'm gonna just approach with the same where our line object, we're gonna kind of just do the very simple, and similar with around 30. Yeah, that looks about right. And then we're gonna duplicate this. We're gonna align with the center, and we're gonna click on each of them, transform and reflect, and then so that they do this really nice. And then we're gonna set the cross, turn it to white, and then remove everything, and then export this real quick. No, not save for web. As just a PNG, use artboard, and put it in Village OS, sure. Put it in the folder. back to Unity, drag our, wow, I didn't know it takes so long to save like a cross. Oh, it should be already saved. This is saved, right? Okay, cross. And we're gonna go back to our Unity and drag this, not you, drag this in here. And now we have the cross. Same thing, we're gonna change it to sprite, apply. Now what we wanna do is just every time click on, well, like, it would be easier to just like kind of turn circle into this button with image, but we are gonna just make the circle into the circle button, or like, and then no, we're gonna put the circle inside it. So instead, we keep this, which I think is what you need to click. So we're gonna create this object as the menu button with a circle inside and then with a cross inside. So now we know this menu button has two kids. One is circle, one is cross. The first circle is on by default when like menu is enabled. So if menu is enabled, we show cross. If menu is not enabled, we show circle. Simple as that. And I'm gonna just make the circle smaller so it looks nice. It looks kind of like more, yeah, something like this is fine. Okay, so cross is disabled by default, and we're gonna go into our script. Super easy. So in the menu script, this is gonna where we like change icon for the sub menu. We have the menu button reference, right? I think we do. Oh, we actually don't. So we're gonna create a reference for the menu button. Game object menu button, and the menu button reference we are gonna menu button, oh wait, it's here, right here, UI, we're gonna put the menu button. Now we have the reference, and what we're gonna do is that if sub menu is enabled, so which means we are enabling, we are gonna show the cross, which is the second child object inside the menu button. This is not the best way to do it, but it's fastest. And so we're gonna enable, so sub menu, no, menu button dot transform dot get child 0 is gonna be disabled. Game object set active false, and copy paste that. Game object is true, so second game object, give it the index here. Well, is that since we're just setting this true and false, we don't really need the if state since put this inside here, so this actually saves a lot and makes more logical sense. So yeah, basically every time we show the cross, disable it, show the circle, right? Easy. So let's see, this will be the last task of today, and let's see if we got it working. Yeah, and my computer is very slow, just handling with menu, as you can imagine, handling with, large, but it is what it is. And yeah, and now it works. So once we click on the circle, it will show like over here, which we'll fix later, no worries. But as you can see, like everything we wanted to do, we have it. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so I think we've had some really nice. As you might see, it's nothing super exciting yet because the design itself is pretty much a grind. And every little bit of interaction takes a while to like be set up and be running, and then all the animations and stuff. So like without even paying attention, like this can just be taking hours and hours and hours of your time. But I do think that consistency and persistence is gonna bring some result to this project. And so during the next project, we will do a different aspect of game development, which would be more related to 3D asset creation. And maybe we'll get into some of the parts of the inventory side of things. And it would be super cool. Maybe later this week, we can get into the part where like you're actually putting the plants into the scene. So maybe I'll save that part for the live stream. So it's more exciting. You're actually putting the plant onto the ground. So, and also wanted to note that in the next session, I want to move my session a bit earlier because I have some inconvenient plans throughout the day. So I will keep you updated on what time it will be, but it should be on Friday, but maybe just earlier in the day instead of the regular 1 p.m. PST. And with that being said, I think we can end today's session. Thank you for another extra 20 minutes and appreciate your patience. Hopefully the session is fruitful and not too dry and boring.